Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. JACALYN at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and our show today is Leadership of the Heart. I am so excited to have my friend and coach back with us, sharing this stage. Her name is MARISKA, and she's joining us from New Zealand. Welcome to the show.
Hello, and yes, we are back. I am so excited to be back. It feels like I haven't been here in ages, and I know we did a show last week, but it still feels like I haven't been here in ages.
It feels like a very long time. So I'm super excited that you're back, and you've brought a great guest to the show. So for people who are joining us for the first time, you know, we've got some new radio platforms in addition to the television platforms and the podcast platforms. Tell us a little bit about you and the work that you do to help others.
Ooh, okay, a little bit about me. I am a ex-engineer, although I'm not sure that the engineering all gets out of the system anytime soon. That has transitioned into coaching and working with leaders, helping them to increase their game in the human realm. So that's what I do, and I work with people that is specialists, such as engineers, to help them be a little bit more human-centric. So yes, that is very exciting. I also, of course, have a couple of shows on Talking Heads. So if you guys want to browse the YouTube channel, you can find me there. And of course, on our radio show, it will pop up every now and again. And I co-host this. And of course, we also have the book coming up. So for those of you that is not aware of it as yet, me and Dr. JACALYN are writing a children's book about listening. So yes, there is a whole bunch of stuff that we are busy with at the moment. So very exciting.
Thank you so much, MARISKA. I really appreciate that. And we are definitely writing a book series, 7 books, all about teaching kiddos and their parents how to listen. And, you know, I don't think mentioned that you are also a certified elevated listener, in addition to being a co-host and a talking head. So tell us a little bit about why is listening so important if you are in a leadership role. Regardless, it's important for everyone, I believe, in the world, but why so much if you're a leader?
Well, the big thing is, for us, we have I remember when I was in school, my teacher always told me that I have 2 ears and 1 mouth. So we need to listen twice as much and speak only a little bit. And I do think that that applies in leadership as it is in life, because we already know what we think. We already know what's going on in our own heads, but we do not know what's going on for our team and for the people around us. And the only way for us to find out what's going on for our team and the people around us is to listen. Not to listen to answer, not to listen to try and solve a problem, to really listen to understand. And that is one of the things that we want to help people learn from a very young age in the book, so that they can learn how to listen in a way that would help them and others.
Brilliantly said. Thank you. And also, we want people to learn elevated listening skills so they don't have to undo all the bad behaviors that they've accumulated as adults and say, whoa, I was listening with judgment and I wasn't fully present. So, we will be giving more information about the book. And we do have a new television show that's coming out in alignment with that, where you get to meet the characters of the book. But for now, I want to focus on the guests backstage. So, do tell us how you met John.
Well, me and John met during some coach training, actually, that we decided to take, and as it happened at the same time, with the same group of lovely people. And I was fortunate enough to be able to continue working with John in different capacities. And I have to say, listening, he's got down to an art. And he also helps executives and teams to navigate those areas where sometimes we find a little bit difficult things going on. So it might be that we show up and we think we are showing up professionally, but we might be showing up a little bit as a jerk. Or alternatively, there's things that happen within our environment and we don't quite know how to handle it. So we have a tendency to step back, and it's not actually effective leadership either. So John helps people in those type of areas. And of course, that is enough of me telling you what John does. I would rather like to hear from him.
Welcome to the show, John. Nice to have you.
Thank you so much, Dr. JACALYN. Thank you, Mariska. It's a pleasure to be here.
John, I really appreciate the fact that you are also in the coaching realm, because people are going through so much in this world. And sometimes we have a tendency to go inside instead of looking for help outside. And I know that you help people with that awkwardness in that uncomfortable zone that we want to stay away from. We want to be comfortable, nice and warm in our blanket. And so you actually help people with their curiosity and to get uncomfortable to move forward. Is that correct?
It's all true, Dr. JACALYN. And I would say it came from myself needing to do the same over the years, and continuing to find ways I can be a little more curious, ways I can be willing to be just a little more uncomfortable, to your point, to really hear what's happening for others, and also to hear what's even going on in here all the time that's really important and matters.
Fantastic. And John, while we have you on Spotlight, if you could share a little bit about your backgrounds as an entrepreneur, as a coach, for people who are thinking, wow, I'd like to learn more and find out what are the services that he can provide for me.
Okay, so I'm gonna go a little ways back to the question of how did I become a coach? Is that too far back, Dr. JACALYN? Is that all right?
That's great. It's you, take it away.
So I started my career working for Fortune 500 companies as a consultant. Actually worked in the building at the time. Scott Adams, the author of Dilbert, was there. So I worked in a Dilbert cube, for those who get that reference. And from there, I moved into the nonprofit side, leadership, chief marketing officer, COO, CEO at different organizations. And it was at one of those organizations I was driving to work. I felt uncomfortable, pulled over to the side of the road. At that point, I thought I might be having a heart attack. It wasn't. It was a panic attack, which equally was out of left field for me. Didn't understand what it was. I just knew I couldn't really work. And so a kind mentor at the time reached out and said, John, would you consider working with a coach? We've had people with a lot of stress work with a coach, and they've had a lot of great luck. I said, that sounds great. And Dr. JACALYN, I would have said that sounds great to anything at that point, because I was so uncomfortable, so just unable to do what I thought I was here to do, which was to be a leader. I questioned if I could even do it anymore. Worked with a coach for a couple of weeks. I was back at work. A couple of months, I was better than ever, although the better than ever required going down in the valley before coming up the other side. Figuring out where I wasn't really paying attention to relationships at work and outside, where I wasn't listening to myself, I wasn't listening to others, and just wasn't taking care of myself. So all the success that the organization was happening that I was proud of, underneath that, I was undercutting that with things that weren't helping that. And so somewhere out of there, a few months down the road, my coach said, so what's next for you? You've been here at this organization for a while. What's next? And I had no answer. And what they picked up on is in my life, everything had just sort of come along. There'd always been some great opportunity that organically came in. And at this point, I didn't really know. And eventually out of my mouth one day, not the first time, not the 10th time, popped, I would love to be a coach like you. I think this was magic. How did this work? How did this happen? How did I go from wondering if I could do this anymore and having a panic attack to feeling better than ever and just thinking, wow, this is something I want to share with the world? Took me a few years. I've now been a coach for about 7 years. And in that time, I've worked with leaders from all industries. I still work with a lot of nonprofit leaders, but also a lot of for-profit leaders around North America, some in Europe. And at the core of it, there are these questions that you brought up here in the beginning around how can I have a greater impact is how I see it. And I think somewhere in there has to be a little curiosity, a willingness to be uncomfortable that really leads people forward. So I'll pause there.
Thank you for your transparency and your honesty. Just by sharing that alone really helps people, because many people feel like they're having a heart attack and they don't realize that it's anxiety, it's stress, it's a number of things it could be. MARISKA?
Yeah. Well, I always find how people get from where they were to where they are fascinating, because no one person ever takes the same route. It just doesn't happen. And finding that stop next to the road was the proverbial kick that you needed to become a coach and share your gift with others is wonderful. I find it fascinating and wonderful how you meandered through all the other things that you did so easily to get to where you are at the moment. And I'm sure that you find that for a lot of leaders that you work with as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Whenever someone asks me, how would you define a coach? Like, what is a coach? Apparently the word goes back to a town in Hungary, spelled differently, but pronounced coach. And they made the most fantastic carriages in the world hundreds of years ago. And so they became known as coaches. Those were the creme de la creme. And at the core of it, a coach is, for them, a carriage was something that took you from where you are now to where you really want to be. And as I would say, with a little more grace, with someone who maybe knows the territory and can help, guide you around some serious swamps or deserts or, poisonous snakes, I don't know. But just some in some way there can help get you where you really want to go faster, maybe making it a little bit easier. And to say all that, I don't think everyone needs a coach all the time. I think they can help us go faster. I work with coaches too to help me go faster towards the things that really matter to me, or simply to figure out what really matters to me now. I was really clear for a long time what really matters to me now. And that's not just something always we can figure out ourselves. Somebody said, we can't read the label on the jar that we are in. So this set of habits that we are, this mindsets that we are, we can't always see that. So simply being able to talk with someone else who, again, coming back to listening, can really listen for those things that could be enlivening to us, that could be possibly holding us back, and being able to reflect them and partner with them to figure out how to move towards what it is they really want.
John, thank you for sharing that. And you mentioned that not everyone needs a coach. And what I'd love for you to expound upon is some people are afraid to get a coach because they don't want to do the work. And I've had people tell me this, like, oh, you mean I can't just hire you and it's all going to be fixed? No, you actually have to show up and do the work. So what do you share with your clients? And then Mariska, I'd love to have you comment on this as well.
Yeah, it's a great lead in. Yes, work is required. That is true. I think I talk about it a lot of as the differences as I see it between sort of coaching and consulting, and then perhaps coaching and therapy. So to me, they're opposite ends of the spectrum. So on the one, a consultant, and I've been a consultant, so I'm familiar with this, the consultant would say, here's the 5-step process to get where you say you would like to go. Do this, 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 and this, and then you'll be great. The coach, on the other hand, while at some time they might provide, a tool, a teaching, a framework, they're more interested in why is that important to you in the first place? What's meaningful about that to you? Because if the motivation isn't there, not going to do the work. If the motivation is not there, it might not even make sense to start working together. Another way to look at it is working together could help someone find the motivation that right now they might, fear or sense that I'm not sure I want to do it. So I always like to talk with people up front, at least 1 or 2 conversations with no pressure, with no strings attached, just to understand not just what do they want and where do they want to go, but why. What's really important about that? And then on the other hand would be therapy, which again for people who've experienced it, there's this sense of there's an expert sort of guiding you through what's in your past, helping heal some trauma, helping all really helpful things. As a coach, I'm really looking for, again, where are you now and where do you want to go? Not really trying to go back into the past so much. It's not that it's off limits. It's just that's not what I practice. That's not what I'm really experienced at. So if someone said, this reminds me a lot, John, of a time when I was a teenager, I might say, well, help me understand how that relates to right now. And then we move forward from there, rather than going back and trying to fix something that, again, someone in a different, as a therapist would be much more skilled at being able to do. But still there's work there. But work also doesn't, for me, it's like, it's not all work. There's fun in here too. There's triumph, there's excitement, there's realizations, there's insight. But I don't know where you get any of that if you don't put in work somewhere. So that's what I would say.
I so absolutely agree that it's interesting that people think, well, I'm going to go to coaching, therapy, consultant. There's always going to be work involved. I don't care where you go, at what point you go there. If you don't do any work, you're actually going backwards. You're not just standing still. So there's always work. I recall having a conversation with a client not too long ago, and they were like, well, I've been at this now for about 2 years. So sometime with me, sometime with themselves. And the question came up, when does it stop? And, well, it doesn't stop. If you want to get better at what you're doing, it's not going to stop. You're always going to find something else. You're going to get better at it. It's like going to the gym. If you stop going to the gym, well, you're going to lose your muscle tone and you're not going to be fit anymore, and you're not going to have the benefits that you have when you go to the gym. So it's going to go away. The thing is, if you keep going to the gym, it's not as difficult as when you've stopped, completely stopped, and then have to go back to the gym. So the work is easier the longer we do that. So yeah, that's one of the ways of looking at it, I think. What do you think, JACALYN?
Yes, we have a major storm here, so there's thunder and lightning, crashing winds. So just if I disappear for a moment, that's where I am. So what I think is that the work never does end. And for me, I don't want it to end, because I'm always curious after I left my corporate career and started this, every day it's a new adventure. It's like, oh, I can do this and I can do that. And I put myself out there every day because the opportunities presented itself. And so one thing might not work out, but how will I know unless I give it a try? So I don't know if I'm a little too open-minded and maybe all over the place. I don't know. John, what are your thoughts?
Well, I would again come back to when I said about, not everybody needs a coach, and not everybody needs a coach now. I think it's who has a coach all the time? Athletes, musicians, or vocalists, people who need to operate at this very, very high level all the time. And so I think how it's come into leadership now, and even for people who aren't, just in thinking about in our own lives, I think we're all leaders in our own lives. Let me just put that out there. It doesn't require a title per se, but I think for any of us, there's a time when we recognize either this ride is moving way too fast, I want to get off, or I am so stuck, I just need a little momentum to move myself forward. And I find that for myself and for all the people I work with, there's some combination of those, maybe some of one for a little bit and some of one for another. And so it's again, just starting at the beginning with, well, what right now would make a huge difference in your life? What's a huge stress? Where is there overwhelm? Where is there something that seems like an amazing opportunity, but there's fear that's coming in and holding them back somehow? And again, from a communication standpoint, it could be, I'm amazing at presenting the facts, but I just can't storytell to save my life, which I don't believe, but I understand that's the perspective some people have. Or it could be the reverse. I have the gift of gab. I cannot be concise to save my life. And that is really limiting what I can do. People get frustrated with me. The senior leadership dismisses me as not confident or not focused. And I'm speaking of men or women here. It's not specific in that way, but these are the kinds of things that come up. And I think people, when they're in that place, could really use a coach. Can they figure it out on their own? Perhaps, but it's going to take longer. And that can be, it can be frustrating. It can be depressing. It can be a lot of different things to engage in that. And sometimes just a little work with a coach can give that kickstart to move them towards where they really want to go. But that doesn't also, you can work with coaches longer. I like to say, if there's still value being provided, if there's still something at the end of every conversation or at the end of a few conversations, if there's aha, now I get it, and some more energy being felt from that, then, by all means, people should keep working with a coach. But at the same time, it's not always possible either for people. So I like to say, start where you can, go where you can, and then, let the coach be a resource, or a different coach be a resource to you somewhere else down the road.
Thank you, John. That makes a lot of sense. When you think back to leaders you've met, and the two of you, and I'll comment as well, and someone really stands out as being a great leader, we think about this show, Leadership of the Heart. It's probably someone who really took the time to get to know you or support your career or let you know that they recognize you and your talents. Can you think of anyone, and you don't have to say their name, but how did that impact your life today? John, we'll go with you first.
It's interesting. The first person that comes up was actually when I was as a corporate consultant. Someone who, in the organization I was in, partner was the top tier. And this person was associate partner. So they had not yet made partner. And I was very new, I was in my 20s at that time. And I asked them at one point, what's your trajectory? What are you, when would you expect to make partner? Just curious, just having conversation. And they said, I'm really not sure. And I don't completely care. Which shocked me, because in that organization, it was all about moving up quickly. And I said, well, help me understand, because everyone else seems really focused on that. And they said, every day I leave the office at 5. If I'm in the middle of a conversation, I say, call me in my car in 15 minutes, and I'm happy to have that conversation on the ride home. I am home for dinner every night with my family when they're in town. Sometimes they would travel, but they're home every night with their family, and they have a dinner with them every night. And then if they have to do work after, they did. So just that piece, it wasn't necessarily seeing me in that moment, but I saw in them someone operating at a very, very high level and being very clear about what mattered most to them, which was their family and their relationship there, and they wouldn't sacrifice it for anything. It took them a lot longer to get to partner. I don't think they felt any loss whatsoever. So for me, definitely the entrepreneurial world, but even before that, I've made choices that's prioritized the relationships in my life that really matter. And that's had a different set of choices for me, but I wouldn't go back on any of those at any time. So I'll give Mariska a chance to weigh in, and I'll come back with another one if there's time.
Wow, I love that. And it's interesting how I think people have an impact on us, whether they realize it or not. JACALYN, when you asked the question, the person that popped up for me was one of my early leaders that I had within my career. And I remember that I always looked up to this person, and yet we had these conversations where they would admit to struggling to delegate or having a hard time with certain things. And I thought, this is so fascinating. I thought that they had it all together and they had it all figured out, because that's the way it sometimes seems, but yet they don't. There's things that they still struggle with. There's things that they're still going through where they need to figure things out. Yes, in certain areas they were really comfortable and good, especially technical, being more of an engineering mindset. This person also had no problem whatsoever when it came to any technical things. But when it came to people, it came up, and I appreciated the fact that they were open about, hey, sometimes I don't know how to delegate. It's easier for me just to take on the work myself than to try and convince somebody else to do the work for me or within the team or whatever the case might be. And then I thought, well, you make it so easy to actually do the work, because for me, you give me clear instructions and I can go off and I know exactly what I need to do. So it's nice and easy for me to be doing it. So within that space, I think I appreciated the realization more and more that, yes, leadership for every person is going to look different. And we never know what that other person is thinking until we have that conversation. So that's what I appreciate about the leaders in my life that I have been exposed to. JACALYN, what's your experience?
I had someone in my corporate career that, as you know, I retired from in 2020 because you helped me figure it out, come up with the plan. And it was sort of a disruptive approach. And so I had been sick, as you know, ulcerative colitis and psoriasis and eczema. I've been sick for a lot of my life. And I'm traveling all over the world, selling meetings and events, employee recognition programs, running to the bathroom. And finally, this person said to me, he said, do you think that you still have the energy to do this job? And at the moment he said it, I was immediately hurt and insulted, thinking that I'd been there for so long. But then I stepped away and I realized he gave me a gift, because he gave me the opportunity to actually think about doing something else. And in that, I started feeling excitement that maybe I wouldn't be sick anymore, because maybe I was sick because I was doing something that I shouldn't be doing anymore. And lo and behold, it all worked out. So I don't know that's the answer that I thought I would be sharing, but that's what came up for me.
Great story.
Wow, it is. And it's interesting. I mean, we had the one question, right? And all three of us had different experiences of leaders within our life, which I find fascinating.
And of course, we can all recognize leaders who are not so great, who don't really treat people by leading with their heart. But John, what would you say are some characteristics of a good or great leader?
Yeah, I've been asked this question a few times. I think I've told Mariska before. I've answered this with my top 5. So I'm going to stick to it. So my first and foremost is around self-care, or putting ourselves first. We've all heard about the put our oxygen mask on ourselves first, but sleep, exercise, diet, relationships. I mean, I sort of conveyed that in my story. I just think, to a person, the people, and your story, JACALYN, I mean, it's illustrative in there as well, to keep operating at our highest level, whether we have a coach or not. Exercise, sleep, diet, relationships, these boring things, right, that we all get to take part in and try to figure out and navigate. But the people who focus on these consistently, that doesn't mean we always get it 100% right, but it's like we keep coming back to it. We keep focusing and saying, how can I do these things maybe a little bit better to have the most energy I can to be able to bring to whatever it is that's important, whatever I'm trying to make happen. My second is reflection. And what I mean by that isn't just that someone does it once a year, but that it's ongoing. It's a habit in itself. And, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly, and, some people say there should be even bigger, better ones every 5 or 10 years. But some kind of reflection that really gets to, again, what's most important, how am I doing based on where I say I want to go, and maybe what other resources can I bring in at this point. Third would be authenticity. I know that gets so overused, but this notion, especially within work, that we go to work and there's this, I don't know, cloak that we have that's everything not corporate or something, and we hang it on the door when we go in. And so there's a different John that shows up. There's a different leader that shows up. We leave out some of those things. I think a lot of those things are the best parts of what's in there. So authenticity, I just want to be clear. I don't think authenticity means, again, if you have a tendency to be very aggressive, well, that's something to be looked at. You can't just say, well, that's just who I am. But I think authenticity to a high level is really important. Resilience, and as I also say, the ability to fail or flop brilliantly, to be able to put yourself out there enough so that you will fall down, so that you will not do everything perfectly, because that's where the learning is. And then in that place of floppedness, in that place when we're down, is to recognize in that moment there's momentum, there's learning, there's something from this that I can bring back to go even higher from where I just was. I'll get back to that one in a moment. Just to say, my last one is humor. And actually, Mariska and I were just talking about this recently. I really believe that humor, laughter, if it is not present in a work environment, in a personal relationship, I always think there's something missing. And I understand that's just part of me. I really like to bring more humor in. But I also notice whenever there's a team that I'm working with or a group, when there's laughter present, there's a lot more transparency in their communication. There's a lot more authenticity. There's a lot of curiosity happening. So those are my top 5. If I can, just to quickly go back, the fourth one, resilience. And I actually decided to take a whitewater kayaking introductory experience this weekend. I've never done it in my life. It was 7 hours in 90-degree heat. It was awesome. And awesome included me flipping my kayak repeatedly, and you have to kind of exit your kayak and, shake the water out of your nose and your mouth and everything and recognize where you are and you're alive, right? So that was uncomfortable. That was really uncomfortable, right? And the instructor I had was so skilled and evoked so much trust and a sense of safety that I never questioned, would I be okay? And so I think in the same way, as leaders, as coaches, I think we're aiming for that same high mark, that when we provide that trust and safety, it allows people to take these risks. It allows people to test and grow their own resilience, and hopefully with a few laughs. And I'll pause there.
I love that. I can just imagine seeing you out there, and that first flip, it must be really either incredibly invigorating or terrifying. I don't know, but to continue doing it, and it's dangerous as well, but you just put that part of it outside and just focus on the experience, right?
Yes, and I will say that, so the first ones were in a very, very safe, controlled environment, and the instructor was skillful enough, right? They were a coach of sorts, right? They weren't just an instructor. They were picking up on people's fears. They were picking up on what's really going on, and then how can we work with that to make it feel a little bit better. So by the time we actually hit the gentle whitewater, not crazy extreme Grand Canyon kind of stuff, by the time we hit that, I thought, I will admit, I thought, I've got this down. I'm not going to go over, right? And then I did, and that was the surprise. The surprise was that I went over. It wasn't this like, oh, what do I do? It was the, what? I thought I had this down, right? And so, but being underwater and now in a current, that was a bit different. But when I came up and kind of, shook everything out and recognized that I was okay and I was going to be okay, and my instructor was right there, I just thought, wow, like that was everything that just built up to this, made that easy, and it'll make this learning rather than this traumatizing experience. And I did say no to one thing in the day out of 25 that were offered to me. But when I said no, I was just, all the adrenaline had kind of run through my system. And I was like, I don't feel good about taking on that as a challenge right now. But I came back later and did everything else. So yes, I think there is a skill to understanding what's right for someone else, what's right for us, and that trust and safety comes from that.
And it's such a great example that you gave, because people can definitely relate to it. I had something similar with the paddleboard and taking a lesson, and I was determined I wasn't going to fall off. And the next thing, I'm lying in mud. But where I wanted to go from that is, so once you put yourself out there, you did this, right? You went out there this weekend and did it. Yeah. You've conquered it, so to speak. Does that mean you'll put yourself in there again in that same situation? Or do you say, hey, you know what? I did that. That's an A, or that's a check. I'm going to go on to another curiosity.
Well, and I've talked with MARISKA, so she knows. I have a bit of a connection to the metaphors that exist around whitewater kayaking. So for me, it was trying to really experience it. I've read stories, I've talked with people, but I'd never experienced it. So it's not like I felt like a phony or anything. I just really wanted to understand, well, when someone talks about coming out of the eddy into the current, or coming out of the current into the eddy, like, what does that actually feel like? What does it actually feel like? And what else is going on? Well, now I know what else is going on. So I think to answer your question, JACALYN, I don't think I could have answered that going into it. I didn't have a plan besides, hey, I just want to kind of understand this and get to know it. Because of the experience I had and how exhilarating, challenging, funny, scary, like little parts of it, I definitely would want to go back, just not for 7 hours on a 90-degree day. But I think I would want to go back because there's nuance to it. It's not about, this isn't, some macho midlife experience that I just, I'm like, I want to conquer the waves. For me, it's much, first and foremost, it's about being outside. Like this is a wondrous area to be in that you can't go in unless you're going to be, put yourself in a kayak. Like there's things you just can't go to very easily. But also, besides that, it's just the calming. That was the thing all along. It was how can I get a little more peaceful right in this moment? And the instructor, he never said that, but that's what I sensed when I watched him. It's just a peacefulness in it. And yes, there's practice, but I think it was sort of surrender, if you will, just being able to go, I don't have control over this. There's things I can do, and I know what to do when those things don't work, and so it was sort of in that way. I actually tipped over and came out of my canoe once, kayak, and underwater, I did a somersault before I came up. Now, I didn't realize I did this. I was so disoriented, I didn't know which place was up. So I just was kind of going around trying to find it. And I came up, and he pointed it out. He's like, "Did you just do a somersault?" And I said I did, but I said it wasn't on purpose. Oh, it was brilliant. And the other people were like, "You look so calm, you look so relaxed." I was like, well, I understood that panic wasn't helpful. And so I think, when I look at why would I go back, is to keep reminding myself, panic isn't helpful, for myself, for other people, regardless of our situation. And so, and also there's a nice community there who also are sort of playing with the same thing of, right, what's the edge of fear for me that's reasonable, that's not about adrenaline, but just how can I use this in my life, not just as a metaphor, but really to learn, like, and train myself. How can I approach any situation with a little more curiosity, willingness to be a little uncomfortable?
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
And again, I just love that example that you gave because it's such a good one on many levels. There's the physical part of it where you are physically challenged to do something. Then there's the mental part, the emotional part, and then there's also what could possibly happen. So you could have gotten injured. You could have encountered some type of wildlife that was not happy to see you there. But yet, so this is how life is, though. We have all these layers of things. And if we get so bogged down in the what ifs, we're never going to be doing anything. We're just going to be sitting in a reactive, fearful state.
Yeah. What I really enjoyed about that is, to me, on a bigger level, it's almost the same as what you take your clients through when you coach. You have them in this controlled environment where they can try things out and practice stuff and capsize their kayak and see whether they can come out of it and make sure that they're okay. And then you put them back into the wildlife or work, in their case, and they can actually go and do it and hopefully not be surprised if they do capsize their little kayak, but have the tools to be able to get out of it again. So
yeah, it's a great, I like that, Mariska. I never actually thought of it that way from the sort of, bigger picture of that. But it is, I mean, if we're talking about a coach right at the beginning, it's a coach on water maybe, right? But it's this, to me, it's like at the even when I'm working with a coach, it's like, how deeply am I willing to look inside? How deeply am I willing to say, this is what I really want in my life? And I'm not necessarily talking about millions of dollars in a yacht, but it could just simply be a little bit of peace, right? Maybe this thing that's important to me. But my sense is it starts with being willing to, I think all leaders start with, we make a commitment to something. And it's the size of that commitment. It's a little bit of scariness in that commitment. That's what makes it real. And that also is what requires us to learn and change. If we make a commitment, we say, I'm going to do that, and it requires no learning or change, it's not much of a commitment. It's just kind of a to-do, go to the grocery store on Sunday. Not much of a commitment, at least for me. I don't know. I might feel short on time, but it's not much of a stretch. I don't have to learn much of anything to go grocery shopping. But if I said, what's important to me is I really want, let's just say I want this promotion. Well, what's that promotion mean to you? Well, what comes with that is additional money, resources, and the ability to call a few more shots in my life. Maybe it means being able to send a child to college that they really would like to go to rather than having to choose from one that they can't go to. So promotion is almost meaningless. Promotion that will lead to resources that can lead to a child being able to go where they would like for college. Now we're on to something. Now we're on to motivation that it starts to connect to the level of commitment of what they might actually have to do. And it might be hard. Back to your initial question, JACALYN, like what really matters? Like what makes this thing so important? And I think for a lot of us, we don't necessarily have people asking us what's really important in our lives a lot of times. So I think coaches also can help uncover that, even if it's not obvious up front.
Thank you, John. Great points. And it's hard to believe our show is over already. But while I have you on Spotlight, can you please share with our audience who's unable to read the banner or they're listening on the radio, how can people reach you and who would you like to contact you?
Thank you. Yeah. So the easiest way to find me is through my website, www.northstar-coaching.com or john@northstar-coaching.com. And I mostly work with senior leaders in organizations, whether for-profit, nonprofit, who are really looking for a greater level of clarity, confidence, calm that's really going to lead them to greater positive impact. So that's who I really love working with, JACALYN.
Thank you very much. And you shared a lot of really valuable and pertinent information. I hope you'll come back and see us again.
I would love to do that. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much. And you can come on this show or any of our other shows. We have now 26 shows a week. So
that's a lot.
This is what I do day in and day out. So.
Thank you, JACALYN, and thank you, Mariska, as well.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Bye.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Mariska, how can people reach you and who would you like to contact you?
Ooh. People can reach me also via my website, which is www.journey2, and it's the number 2, discover.com. Or alternatively, you can email me, mariska@journey2, also the number, discover.com. I am also more on LinkedIn than any other of the social media platforms. So if you would like to connect, please write me a little private message and say that you have seen or heard me on radio or TV, and I would love to connect with you and we can continue our conversation. People that can connect is anybody within the specialist field that wants to move into leadership, or even that is within the leadership field that wants to level themselves up and need to get some, human skills sorted out in the process. So that is the people that I normally work with.
Thank you, Mariska. And when can we expect to see you back on Talking Heads?
Ooh, good question. So not this week, and next week I am going to be back on Talking Heads. There's a few more lessons coming, and I know you guys have been waiting for the very last one in our communication series. So yeah, very excited about that as well.
All right. Well, we're excited to have you back. Very nice. Okay, I'll just close out the show and thank you again for being here, and thank you for bringing John.
It is absolutely my pleasure, and loved having John here. And of course, having his kayak story just opened so many things in my brain. It's not even funny. So I'm sure we're going to have lovely conversations after this as well.
I agree with you. All right. Thanks again.
Bye.
Bye. Hello, everyone, whether you're watching or listening, thank you so much for being here. I just want to give some brief information about the shows that we have, and then a little invitation for everyone. So I'll just go through them very quickly. I don't have all the graphics, but I probably have about 20 of them. So we have Secrets to Timeless Beauty with my co-host Katrina Valente, joining us from Dubai. We have our new show, which is in alignment with the book that Mariska and I are writing, one of 7, The Amazing Adventures of Lady Ella, the Listening Mentor, the TV and radio show. So for those of you who don't know, when I'm not on this platform, I also have another business, drjacalyn.com, where I'm a certified life and career coach, certified meditation teacher, and certified yoga instructor. And I teach people how to listen at an elevated level. And Ella is my great niece. She is 9 months old. And so together, I should have pointed out, all of these animals on the book cover represent people I have certified as elevated listeners. So they actually have taken the power of listening and they're certified, and their characters are going to help us help children and their parents learn how to listen. Okay, also in that alignment, we have a new course under the power of listening, Nature, Plants, and Shrines. And I'll be putting together a promo for that tonight. We have on our platform here A Woman's Prerogative. We also have The Art of Creating Mental Health Wealth, The Epiphany Process with Janetta Barry joining us from Oxford, England. And we have What's Trending with Kathy Fulton, who is joining us from Virginia. We have presenting Pet Psychic Amina, and Amina is located in California. We have Loving Longevity with Annie Bush in Florida. And Aging Gracefully with Humor, also Kathy Fulton in Virginia. And we have our woman show, A Woman's Prerogative, a show for women, by women, about women. And this week we will be talking about a woman's body and her right to choose. That should be rather heated. And we're also going to have our Global Homes and Gardens. We have the United Kitchens, our cooking show with Ricky McKenna, and she is in the great state of Texas. We also have Adversity to Awesome. This is my second book, as you can see in the corner, that I just published not that long ago. I think in May, it became an Amazon #1 bestseller. And this show is where people share their stories of hope, inspiration, and overcoming adversity. We have The Power of Etiquette and Manners. My co-host on this one is Philip Sykes. He is in London. And we have Authentic Achievements with Kim Adele Randall. She is also in London. And our new show, Who's Listening Game Show. This is for certified elevated listeners like Mariska. We are going to be competing against each other, seeing how well my team is actually listening. And there'll be fabulous prizes and gifts for people who are joining us for that. We have our men's show, Wild at Heart, Real, Authentic, Uncut. And my co-host for this one is Roland Friedel. He is literally in an RV driving through Europe for the next year. And he came up with this show, which is terrific. We have The Wise One, starring Red O'Loughlin, as my co-host. He is joining us from Texas. And we have The Corner Bookstore, Diane Floyd Bame, also from Texas. We have The Business Talk Show with Mr. Al Cini from New Jersey. And let's see what else we have. We have the Elevated Listening Community. As I mentioned, this is a community where people who want to listen at a higher level are there. And of course, we have my show, The Listening Mentor, that I do every week with Caroline Heward. We look at role plays of effective and ineffective listening skills. And a new show coming up is a spirituality, Christianity show, which has not been named yet, so stay tuned. And we have Leadership of the Heart, which is where we are right now. We also have the United Kingdom news and culture. And I have 3 expert correspondents from the UK joining us. Simon McDonald, who is a celebrity chef, a television presenter, and he is the head of the fisheries for Scotland. And we have Ian Pelham Turner and Helena Shard. They are the royal photographers and the royal commentators for the British royal family. And going on, we have our Talking Heads panel. Mariska is one of our talking heads, and our panel gets together once a month, and I give them a topic 5 minutes before the show starts, and they then have a conversation, and in some cases, they may not have even met each other. And of course, our Talking Heads show. And I think the film and music show is the last one that I have a graphic for. So That's a lot of shows, and they're not even all up there. If you'd like to be a co-host, if you'd like to have your own show, where I'm going with this platform is I want to be on here less. Like, you don't see me. I'm producing, I'm writing, and you're on here more. So we are having a special 4th of July sale. If you'd like to have your own 30-minute show, or you'd like to be a talking head, one of our expert presenters, or if you'd like to be on our elevated listening team, my course is $257. It's on sale for $49. What? Yes, you can get certified, have your headshot and your certificate on drjacalyn.com, have your headshot on usaglobaltv.com, and you also get to be on our listening mentor show. So everyone knows that you listen at an elevated level. So I'm sure you're sick of listening to me because I'm sick of talking. So I'm going to say goodbye for now. And thank you to Mariska. And thank you so much to John. And thank you to each and every one of you. If you're listening or watching on our YouTube channel, USA Global TV, please just click subscribe. We have 90% of our audience is men on YouTube. Where are the ladies? Ladies, are you out there on YouTube? Can you just hit subscribe? Subscribe. We would love it. All right. Thanks. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Bye.